Hey everyone, Nick here again at Movie Relics. So I've debated on whether or not to do this video now or way down the road because I have a feeling this might terrify a lot of the newer collectors. But I also know it's very important to know this sooner rather than later. So I'll be going over quite a few of the nuances and truths behind these mythical and almighty pieces of paper called certificates of authenticity. Let's start off by saying I do think COAs are very important, but possibly for not the same reasons that you might be thinking. A COA or LOA is a very good starting point for every prop purchase. They can tell you where the prop may have traveled, the hands it's passed through, additional known background information, and possibly an indication that has been vetted by a very knowledgeable company or collector to a certain degree. But also keep in mind the motto Jack of all trades, master of none. Does this mean that if a COA or LOA comes from a large company that they're subject matter experts in all movies and every individual prop? No. Even saying that feels like it's a very obvious, impossible claim for anyone or any company. Here's a fact that most people almost gloss over or try to ignore its importance. Every company has made errors in their authentication. Every company. Why is this so important? This means that any prop sold by anyone, any company, has a small percentage of possibly being wrong. Some companies more or less than others. Also, contrary to the popular belief, prop COAs are not blessed off by some governing body of oracles that has an ironclad, foolproof authentication method for every prop ever made. COAs are literally made by a human, just like you and I, typed up by a human, printed by a human, signed by a human, with a company logo that is ran and owned by a human. This means that any prop sold by any company or anyone has a percentage of possibility that it could be wrong. Some companies more or less than others. Do you personally know someone that has literally been correct about everything they've ever said? Or a day trader that has never lost money on a single trade? Or an astrophysicist that knows every single thing about the cosmos and has also solved the theory of everything? If you have said yes to any of those, you might need to schedule an appointment with a therapist. I'm now going to double down on this harsh reality of collecting and these infamous pieces of paper called COAs. COAs are issued by companies. Companies are ran by people. People make mistakes. It's actually quite impressive when companies can pull together a big auction with little to no errors. Every collector that has been around this hobby for even a couple years has probably caught a few replicas, fakes, or mislabeled props being sold by even the big names out there. Also, these companies only have so much time, resources, and available knowledge to bring props to the market. Majority of these companies cannot sit on just one prop and use the majority of their time researching this one prop until they know every detail about it is verified, especially when they're putting together an auction that has literally hundreds of props in it. But only so much due diligence can be done before they hit a dead end on available information or end up exhausting way too much time and resources on one item, which then affects researching other props, which then causes less sales. Less sales means less money to keep the lights on, so on and so forth. So there's plenty of obvious room for error. It's actually quite impressive when you think about it how often these companies are correct. More times than not, when you contact one of these companies or a seller with updated information that you find, they would be more than happy to look at the information you bring to the table. And if they agree with your findings, these items are typically retracted from their sites or the buyers are refunded. But these companies do appreciate when collectors help them out because they aren't subject matter experts in every movie. Some collectors spend a lot more time on a particular genre or movie and have spent way more time and gathered way more information on a particular prop than most companies have. This is where your expertise is actually appreciated by companies because they too want to learn and they also want to put out very accurate COAs. Except for a very few or very limited amount of companies or collectors that make these errors, or they could just be shady sellers, these are mostly just simple, honest mistakes. Now let's talk LOAs, or letters of authenticity. These typically come from someone closer to the production itself and aids tremendously in research. If the LOA comes from, like, say, the prop master, someone from the special effects team, or another crew member, you can immediately start researching their credentials, and sometimes their name can bring up some great background information from, let's say, behind the scenes or photos or interviews. And I've seen LOAs as basic as a simple one-liner explanation of what that prop is on a plain white piece of paper. And I've seen LOAs that have much more detailed information, much more professional looking with additional background information, stamps, etc. No matter the quality of the LOA, you're still reliant on another person's word, and they may not be ironclad facts. Sometimes you're simply relying on this person's recollection that happened 20 years ago. Once again, this is just a starting point, but a great one. I personally prefer LOAs over COAs because you're getting that information directly from someone who more than likely has more specific knowledge about that particular prop and are typically the same crew members or sources that the big companies talk to for their information as well, that they issue for their COAs. With COAs, you have no idea what information that was backed by. Was it information that was verified by someone from the production or by loose information found on the internet? With an LOA, you at least know where that information came from. Could and should companies include some background information with their COAs? I personally think so, but a lot of companies don't want to give out their sources, nor do they want to openly admit the COA was issued by the word of another collector. So I just don't see companies doing that. Do I ask for COAs or LOAs? Yes. It's a great way to document the history of a prop, and it can tell you a lot about the reputation of the issuer. Some companies are known for their near perfect resume of solid ironclad COAs, and some are known for selling nothing but fakes. Also, if a COA says production made, but is being sold as screen used, my very first question would be, what information have you found to change this prop from production made to screen used to also justify this massive screen use price increase? Documentation is key to keeping the integrity of a prop for the long run, and in a way is a good breadcrumb trail of information. So I think that this next bit that I'm about to dive into could be the most important information you can get out of this video, but is also probably the most feared. Some collectors will even pass on a prop if they run into this. Should you stay away from a prop without a COA or LOA? Not one bit. This only means that the prop hasn't passed through a company that issues a COA. And remember, there could be a collector that knows way more about that prop than any company that issues COAs. So instead of starting with a prop that's had some due diligence done up front already, you're just now starting your research from scratch. Is it comforting to know that a prop has at least passed through the vetting process of a larger prop company with years of experience? Obviously. But sometimes that just means that there wasn't enough red flags out there for the company to reject that item. Here's also why it's ridiculous that COAs are the end-all be-all. Let's say the seller gives you an authentic COA that was issued with the original prop, but sends you a replica prop instead. Does that authentic COA now make this replica prop now an authentic prop? Or what if they send you a fake COA with a real prop? Does this make the prop fake? And let's keep going down this crazy rabbit hole just to really drive this home. Does a fake COA that comes with a fake prop cancel each other out and make them both authentic? Or if you bought a prop definitely from the first movie, but it comes with a COA stating it's from the second movie, which is more correct? The prop or the COA? Or let's say a prop starts with a shady or unknowledgeable prop dealer and sells a fake to a collector. Then this collector finds out that the prop was fake, but instead of doing the right thing and just eating the cost or trying to at least get their money back, they sell it or trade it to a more reputable prop company who trusts that person and now issues a COA for a fake prop. Or what if the collector bought a production made but then sells it to the next dealer as screen used, and that dealer trusts them, and now it's issued with a screen used COA? Or what if a prop company acquires a prop and either from their lack of research or lack of information available at the time was only able to verify this prop as being production made, couldn't quite verify it as being production used. Then later, it gets to another prop company and it's issued with a COA that says it's screen used, saying they found more information. What was this new information that the second company found? Was it solid enough or quantifiable enough to change its label? Shouldn't both COAs be given, or at the very least, the information obtained that changes its description also be given? How do you know if that information was solid enough to even make it screen used, or if they even had any information to make it screen used? Let's say you pay $500 for a production made prop, and then later on, after you sell it, you see it sold through another prop dealer, and it's sold as screen used for $5,000. Something obviously happened in between for this $4,500 price increase. Don't get me wrong, the sky is not falling. Most of these dealers out there are good, solid companies, but there's definitely situations that I know I've overheard about where a prop is not being properly described. You can now see that the most true and an important aspect in all of this is to do your own research. Most of our props don't even have COAs, and the ones that do, we did our own research, and we've even passed on props with COAs plenty of times. Now, having said all of that, here's why research is also so important. I'm 99.9% certain that if you go to a major prop dealer and you ask for the information, you won't get it. Not just because they want to keep the source hidden to themselves so they can be their only buyer, but imagine if everyone in the hobby knew who the source was. That source would be blasted with messages from every collector out there. And not only is getting 500,000 messages from random people about props annoying, that may cause that source to stop selling. Not every collector is knowledgeable, respectful, or truly has money to buy. Plenty of people back out of a deal when it's time to fork over the cash. So not only to keep the source sane, it isn't exactly encouraged within the film industry to sell props to the public. And it also safeguards that seller from affecting their careers. Most dealers have zero issues with refunding you, and this is typically a very easy thing to sort out because they also have cash in the bank ready to deploy at all times. Smaller dealers and some collectors don't have this cash on hand. If an individual sells a prop for $5,000 and came with the COA and later found out to be a fake, not everyone in the world has $5,000 just sitting around ready to give back. They may have needed that to fund another prop purchase, or may have needed to sell that in a hurry to raise funds for a family emergency. Now you got to hope that you can get everything sorted out with the initial COA issuer. But also, you might hear, I trust my source and I stand by its authenticity. And now you're in a fight on whose information is more correct. Now we're back to the dealer not wanting to give out sources' names or information. And you might be thinking that this is all hypothetical, or that this rarely happens, or that this is the sky is falling mindset. But I can assure you that I've seen each scenario that I've mentioned, as well as many others, multiple times. Some of these happened to me when I was less experienced and was learning how this hobby worked. Having painted this large scope of COAs and their uses as well as their shortcomings, researching should feel obvious up to this point. Trust but verify, and you'll build yourself a great collection that you can feel comfortable about. But never pass on a prop simply because it does not have a COA or LOA, nor put all your faith into a COA or LOA either. It's up to you to verify their stated information. It takes a lot of work to research, and it's hard to keep going when you don't find anything for a long period of time. But think of it this way. It's like panning for gold. You'll be sifting through piles and piles of dirt and mud just to find a small nugget here and there, but it all adds up over time. When I'm buying, I do my research so I know what I'm buying is 100%. Then it's easier to justify some of these crazy premiums, and those premiums alone can be frightening in themselves. Also, the history and background of these props hold value in its own and sometimes can be just as impressive as the prop. I hope this video shed some good light on why COAs are important, but also don't make a prop authentic in itself. I hope none of this haunts you in your dreams, but rather inspires you to look into your future purchases more. Remember, trust but verify, and research, research, research. And please comment below with what you guys thought about this, or maybe your experiences with COAs out there, or other videos I can expand on this in the future. I hope you learned something, and as you know, these types of videos live off of likes, subscribes, and comments, so please hit that subscribe, like, and notification button so you can be notified when I release my next video. Thanks, guys.